Have you ever looked at the great monuments of the ancient world and wondered, did they share a secret? Some kind of master plan, a mathematical code that let them build things with such incredible and weirdly similar beauty. Well, today, we're going to uncover the truth behind a very popular myth and reveal the real codes we found in its place.
So this is the central mystery, right? From the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Mexico, you've got these ancient civilizations. We're talking people separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years. And they built structures that have this just uncanny resemblance. So what's going on? Was it all just a massive coincidence? Or were they, somehow, all working from the same playbook?
I mean, just look at the patterns. Pyramids pop up all over the place. There's this shared obsession with aligning these massive structures perfectly to north, south, east, and west. And these megalithic building techniques, they seem to echo across entire continents. Now, these are not just random similarities. They're very specific, repeated architectural choices that really demand an explanation.
For decades, the number one suspect in this whole mystery has been a single, really captivating number, the golden ratio. It's probably the most popular theory out there. It's an elegant answer, right? It explains how all these ancient marvels could be so beautifully designed. So let's put it on the stand and see if the story holds up. Okay, so what is the golden ratio, or phi, anyway? Well, it's what's called an irrational number, around 1.618, and it has this really unique property. It creates a kind of perfect, self-repeating harmony. See, the ratio of the whole thing to its larger part is exactly the same as the ratio of that larger part to the smaller part. It's a really beautiful idea, mathematically speaking. And this is where the mystique really takes off. People started calling it the divine proportion because it seems to be one of the fundamental building blocks of nature itself. The argument goes that it's almost like a mathematical signature of a creator hidden right there in plain sight.
And the case for it seems really compelling at first. People argue that the ratio of the Great Pyramid's slant height to half its base is almost exactly phi. They claim the face of the Parthenon in Athens fits perfectly inside a golden rectangle. And since we see this ratio in things like the spirals of a seashell or the seed patterns in a sunflower, the theory is that ancient architects saw this divine number and deliberately built it into their most sacred structures.
It's a fantastic story. Really it is. But is it actually true? Well, when we start to look at the hard evidence, the whole case for the golden ratio starts to fall apart. So the first huge problem is the timeline. It just doesn't add up. The Great Pyramid was built more than 2,000 years before the Greek mathematician Euclid ever formally defined the golden ratio. The Parthenon was built over a century before that. So how could these architects possibly have used a mathematical constant that for them literally didn't exist yet?
And this is the critical point. There is a complete lack of a smoking gun. There are no ancient blueprints, no papyrus scrolls, no stone carvings that mention phi, or even the idea of an irrational number. The math of the time in both Egypt and Greece was incredibly practical. It was based on simple, whole number fractions, not these endless infinite decimals.
And hey, this isn't just about missing documents. Modern, super precise measurements have basically put this theory to bed. As mathematician Keith Devlin says, the whole claim about the Parthenon just isn't supported by the actual measurements. A lot of the time, to make the ratio fit, you have to draw these lines that either ignore parts of the building or just kind of float in empty space.
What we're seeing here is a classic textbook example of confirmation bias. That's when we start with a belief, in this case, the golden ratio is the secret, and then we go looking for evidence that confirms it, while totally ignoring anything that doesn't. We're basically drawing the bullseye around the arrow after it's already hit the wall.
Okay, so if the golden ratio is a myth, what do they actually use? The answer is both simpler and, honestly, way more profound. We're now diving into the world of the real ancient mathematical codes, and it all starts with the harmony of whole numbers.
The ancient Greeks didn't just see architecture as putting up buildings. To them, it was like frozen music. They believed that the exact same principles that created harmony in sound, these simple, elegant ratios of whole numbers, also created harmony in physical space. Think about musical octaves or chords. It's all based on clean, simple integer ratios.
And this is the real secret of the Parthenon. Not 1.618 something something, but the clean, simple, and elegant ratio of 4 to 9.
The entire temple is basically a symphony of this 4-to-9 ratio. It governs the relationship between the building's width and its height. It dictates the ratio between the diameter of the columns and the space between them. This was a system that was based on knowable, buildable whole numbers, not some mysterious irrational constant.
Their genius was also just incredibly practical.
I mean, how do you make sure you get a perfectly square corner on a massive stone temple? You use the 3-4-5 triangle. With literally nothing more than a rope with 12 evenly spaced knots, builders from Egypt all the way to Europe could create a perfect right angle every single time. This wasn't mystical math. This was brilliant, hands-on, get-it-done geometry.
But the real ancient codes went so much deeper than just simple geometry. The builders weren't only looking at the ground beneath their feet. They were looking up to the heavens, and they were, it seems, measuring the earth itself.
Okay, think about the Giza Plateau. The way the three Great Pyramids are laid out on the sand, it's not random at all. It precisely mirrors the alignment and even the relative brightness of the three stars in Orion's belt. But here's the twist. Not as they appear in the sky today. They match the sky from over 12,000 years ago. This suggests the pyramids aren't just tombs. They're a kind of celestial clock, mapping the heavens right onto the earth.
And over in the Americas, the Mayans pulled off a similar fusion of the cosmic and the constructed. The Pyramid of Kukulkan is basically a giant, functioning solar calendar. It has exactly 365 steps. And what's just spectacular is that on the equinoxes, the play of light and shadow creates this illusion of a massive serpent slithering down the staircase. That's a planned, predictable, astronomical event built right into the stones.
And this brings us to what might be the most staggering possibility of all: Ancient Geodesy. This is the theory that the ancient builders didn't just map the stars, they had accurately measured the entire planet.
Now get ready for this. If you take the perimeter of the Great Pyramid's base and you multiply it by 43,200, you get the equatorial circumference of the Earth with absolutely stunning accuracy. And that number, 43,200, it's not random. It is directly linked to the precession of the equinoxes, which is the slow wobble of the Earth's axis. This implies they had a deeply sophisticated knowledge of our planet's size and its movement through space. It's just incredible. So what did we find? Well, the search for a single magical number turned out to be a dead end. The truth is so much more complex and honestly far more impressive. The real lost code wasn't one single key. It was a whole toolkit. It included the musical harmony of simple number ratios, the practical genius of tools like the 12-knot rope, a profound understanding of astronomy that they used to align their buildings with the cosmos, and, somehow, a shocking knowledge of geodesy, the science of measuring the Earth itself. This is the true legacy of the ancient builders.
So, debunking the golden ratio myth proves that history isn't some closed book that's already been written. It forces us to ask a really important question. If a belief that was this widely held turned out to be wrong, what other facts that we take for granted about the ancient world might just be myths waiting for someone to take a closer look? What other secrets are still out there hidden in the stones?